Hey everybody, and welcome back to Koibu's Corner. I am so sorry about this episode getting delayed so long. There was BlizzCon, and there was a bachelor party, and then the VOD that we had for this turned out to have terrible audio because of some glitch, and so this is like a couple of weeks late, and I'm sorry for this, but we are here with Koibu's Corner, and we're going to be talking about character death and why it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, dare I say, character death might even be some of the most interesting points in the entire game, yes. And how can we use those points, those interesting moments when your character is about to die, for enjoyment of the game? Well, stick around and find out. First things first, I have notes, I have show notes. I want to talk about the whole point of D&D. Why do we even play D&D? It's not about having your character live the longest. It's not about your character leveling up the fastest. It's not about getting more loot than your friends. The reason we play D&D, like the core reason, is to have a good time and to have fun with our friends and to like create cool situations and memorable experiences and all that stuff. You know, it's having fun with your friends. That's the point of Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's like the core. When you boil it down, that's the most important thing in the game. So now that we realize, or not necessarily realize, but now that we've established that the point of Dungeons and Dragons is to have a good time, let's talk about character death. How does that fit in there? There's no real situation where the death of your character necessarily means you can't have fun. I mean, of course, there's situations where your character dies and it's horrible and you hate it, but your character's dying doesn't mean you can't have fun in the game, right? The point is to have fun. It's not to keep your characters alive. Characters die. It's a great thing sometimes, and we can have a lot of fun with it. So, that said, let's take a look at some of these things. So before we really get into character death, let's establish the fact that your character's death is only cool if your character's life was important or interesting. Like if you have a character who's around for 5 minutes and then dies, ha ha ha, whatever, moving on. That might be their thing. You might remember that character because they only lasted 5 minutes, but if all your characters last, an hour or 2 hours and then they die, the deaths they're not interesting, they're not fun. You're just creating like suicide bombers, basically. So first and foremost, in order for your character's death to be interesting and cool and fun and awesome, you should try to prevent their death as much as possible. I mean, that goes without saying, kind of. Like, why would you want your characters to die? This is not an episode about killing your characters and why you should try and sacrifice your characters. This is an episode about how you can use the inevitable death of your character for something awesome, because character death is really a cool situation. So, now that we've established that character death is fun, or can be cool, is not necessarily against the point of the game, and is something that you should avoid as much as possible, let's talk about those situations where you do want your characters to die. And the first thing I want to talk about when we're getting to character death is DM leniency. This is a fun topic for me. So we all have DMs at varying levels, right? Some DMs are really hardcore, they follow the rules, and if it's not in the rules, you can't do it, or if it bends the rules or breaks the rules, you can't do it. Some DMs are super chill, and they'll kind of let you get away with whatever you want as long as it's not too ridiculous. And some DMs kind of like play around and bounce around in between there. I think I am a pretty middle of the road DM. I'm not super hardcore about the rules, and I'm not super lenient. I might be a little bit more on the rules side than on the leniency side, but I don't know. I fluctuate all over the place. That's just my own interpretation of myself. But DM leniency is this great thing. When your character is about to die, it doesn't really matter how it's happening. Your DM's gonna feel bad, and your DM's gonna kind of like, all right, if you want to like get away with a little something on the side, that's fine. For example, let's say your character is killed. Someone hits them with an axe and they're down below -10, or it's enough damage that they don't need to make death saving throws, or whatever your system rules for that final act of death. You get hit one shot all the way down there. If you're like, oh shit, I'm dying. Well, with my dying breath, can I say this to the party? Your DM's probably going to be like, well, not, okay, fine, you're dying. You can just say just a blurb, that's fine, doesn't really matter. Or, I mean, that's a situation where most DMs should be available, would allow you to do that. Other things that you can do are maybe like one last action, like you're plummeting to your death, you're falling, and you say, well, it's not my turn, but can I make an action anyway? I just want to try and throw my dagger at the guy that threw me off this cliff. Can I just make this action? I know it's not my turn, but I'm dying here, man. Come on. Your DM will be like, Okay, fine. You're dying. You can throw your one dagger. And he might even give you some bonuses or some whatevers because you're about to die and it's your last act. DMs will often give you all crazy sorts of leniency on your last act, including situations like this, which is I haven't actually done, but this would be fantastic. Let's say you're playing a cleric and you're like a level 10 party or whatever, and you're hanging around in this crypt and you get whatever you've come here for and you're taken off and a trap closes and you're stuck on one side and the rest of your party's on the other side, and all of a sudden like a death knight or some like crazy powerful monster that you can't solo by yourself appears, and your party's like, dude, peace out, we're not sticking around to help you, and just flees. And now you're like this level 10 cleric that your party has abandoned, and you're facing some inevitable death, and you're probably badly wounded because you fought your way all down to this crypt, and now you're coming out, and you're on you're limping along basically. Well, in this situation, you can spend the last few rounds trying to argue with the players, trying to bring them back. You can try and fight the Death Knight or the Beholder or the Dragon or the Demon or whatever it is. Or, since you're a cleric who's reasonably powerful and about to die, you might try and call down a curse upon the party. Now, of course, there's no in-game mechanic for cursing people except for a curse spell. And hey, you probably don't have a curse spell memorized, right? Or the curse spell is like, -1 to hit. Oh no, whoop-de-doo. I'm talking about like a real curse. You could have your holy cleric, spend their last moments trying to bring down a curse on the party. What I would do is I would use like a section of in-game dialogue as a player and be like, well, fuck, okay, I go down on one knee, or I go down on my knees and I pray to the gods, and you come up with some sort of like story about how you want to curse these people. Like, I pray to the gods for my character, for eternal suffering to follow the party, no matter what they do, or something along the lines of gods hear my prayers, curse my former comrades until they bring rest to my soul, or something like that. You come up with some interesting, creative, general curse, and just have your character go for it. Now, there's no mechanic for this, right? You're just kind of going willy-nilly. But your DM is the gods. And so if your character goes down and like prays to the gods, that's effectively you praying to the DM, but you do it in-game and it sounds a lot cooler, and then your DM is more likely to go with it because then it brings up this cool storyline. And your DM might be like, well, okay, the Death Knight comes over here and he kills you, but you're like a fairly holy character. You're like a level 10 cleric. Your party did abandon you, and you're going to die a terrible, horrible death to this Beholder, or this Death Knight, or this Dragon, or this Demon, Like, it's not going to be fun. The Death Knight's probably going to absorb your soul and, chew on it for the rest of eternity. You know what? Sure, I'll let that curse go off. Party, you're now cursed. You now, can't heal until you bury his body, or you can't do blah, blah, blah until this, or you're just cursed with this until you can get it removed, and something like that. This is, of course, untried, but if I were the DM and one of my players got abandoned by their party and left to die a horrible fate, and they were already like a semi-holy character, some sort of allegiance to the deities, the pantheon, I would fucking go with that. That'd be awesome. And I mean, you can just kind of take this example and tear it apart and look at its core and apply it to different things. You can use your character's death to get the DM to do something that you wouldn't normally be able to do, only as long as you embrace your character's death. You can't just be like, well, I'm about to die, so can I have a free action, please? Just give me one action. The DM's like, okay. He's like, I drink a healing potion. Ha ha ha, fuck you, DM. You're not going to get away with that shit. You're going to have to actually embrace your character's death in order to get the DM leniency, right? Otherwise, you're pissing off the DM and everyone else. So that's one of those situations where your death is inevitable. You can do something cool because your DM is going to allow you to be flexible. And that's a way that we can have fun with character death. Now, that aside, there's a whole nother section of things that you can do with character death that are even better, which is more of the like sacrificial character. I shouldn't say even better. That's totally bullshit. There's other things you can do. There's inevitable death, and then there's character sacrifice. So inevitable death, DM leniency, pretty cool. Character sacrifice, you have the same DM leniency, but not quite. It's a little bit different because the DM is going to be pretty suspicious. You're going to try and screw him out of something. This may contain some slight spoilers for the Honor-Bound episode that happened on Sunday, November 16, 2014. So you may want to mute temporarily if you've just watched that, or if you haven't watched that but you're just about to. Anyway, there was a scene where we're all on this bridge and we're fighting this troll who we are not killing. And we end up defeating the troll by having people push it off the bridge, which I think was my idea, guys. But what I was trying to do right before my character died was climb on the troll, get him near the edge somehow, and then kick him off or grapple onto his neck and jump off and pull him off with me. So what I'm talking about here is a situation where your party is in trouble. We almost died there. Like, I was unconscious, Ryan was unconscious for a little while, Justin was the only one who never went unconscious, and it's just the three of us, and this troll is regenerating like 10 HP around. We're barely hurting it at all. You can use your character. You can sacrifice your character in a really cool way there. Like, to avoid the party wipe, I was trying to get my character to either push the troll off the bridge or to pull the troll off the bridge and fall with it, dying myself. So situations where you can sacrifice yourself to save the party are great ways to kill your character. They're memorable. Everyone's going to be thankful, and the DM's going to be like, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was awesome. You can do whatever you want for your next character. That was pretty sweet. So let's just talk about a couple of these situations where you can use your characters, and you can sacrifice your character to do something great. First and foremost, the troll example, right? You've got this tall building or this tall structure where the fall would inevitably kill someone. Maybe you're on a dragon, maybe you're on an airship, maybe you're at the top of like a giant castle, maybe you're on the top of a mountain, maybe there's a bridge with a gorge below it, whatever. Maybe you're on the edge of a volcano with lava below. Who cares? It doesn't matter, right? You can use yourself like falling off this thing or pushing someone off or like tackling someone so the two of you fall to kill yourself and this other creature, thereby saving the party. We can do things like, let's say the party's being chased by people that they can't outrun. You can use your character to be like, all right, party, you're going to outrun them. I'm going to like hop off my horse and try and fight all of them by myself, and I'm going to die. We saw this kind of with Victarion when Leia was TPing away with the baby, and Victarion stayed behind to try and stab everyone and kill everyone, so that way they couldn't chase him, and then inevitably he died, because Victarion could have run off into the forest or turned invisible or whatever it was that he could do, and then meet up with the party later, or he could sacrifice himself to try and kill everyone that's chasing after them so they can't find him, right? There's another one in here, right? No. What else could we do? What other ways could we sacrifice our characters for the greater good of the party? Let's say you're trying to steal a piece of treasure from a dragon's hoard, or for some reason you have to get into this dragon's treasure trove, but there's no way you can fight the dragon. Like, you guys are going to get yourselves wrecked. Let's say it's really important that you get treasure. It's not just like, oh yeah, let's get that piece of loot, but it's like, we need to get this thing from the dragon's treasure hoard in order to save the town, to protect the town against the dragon, or to do this other great noble thing. It has to be a cause that worthy of sacrificing yourself, of course. So you're trying to get in here and you can't get in because there's a fucking dragon in there and you can't take him. So you could be like, all right, my character walks up to the dragon, takes the flat of his blade, and slaps the dragon in the face with it to wake him up, if the dragon's not already awake for whatever reason. Or somehow present yourself boldly to this beast. And then talk shit to the dragon. Like, you bastard, you're just a tiny lizard with big wings and a tail, an ulcer. I challenge you to solo combat outside in that field, and the winner, if I win, you'll leave the town alone forever, and if you win, you can eat me. And the dragon will be like, this puny mortal, oh, fine. Let's just go out there, and I'll just eat you and roast you. And you distract the dragon, you take the dragon out of his lair while the rest of the party hides, and then you go off and get yourself killed by this dragon because you're going to die. It's a dragon, right? But in the meantime, the party sneaks in and steals the treasure, whatever it is, and then gets back out. And the party might still run into the dragon on the way out. There might be other problems, but you've used your character to get past the most difficult part of this dragon, or the most difficult part of this, which is sneaking past the dragon on the way in. So these are cool ways that you can use your character. You can sacrifice your character to help the party that are interesting and fun and memorable, and everyone will always be like, oh yeah, remember when so-and-so did such and such with their character? That was one of my favorite moments in D&D. Yeah, that was great. And the last thing we're going to touch on before we close out this episode is that character death is also awesome because you get to make a new character, right? Like, if you're anything like me, you're always thinking of new character ideas. You'll be sitting on the couch watching 30 Rock, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? What if I did a character that was just like Jack Donaghy? Yeah, that would be sweet. You die, hey, you get to make a Jack Donaghy character, and Jack Donaghy may die. He may not work well in D&D. He's kind of an asshole, and he'd get himself killed pretty quickly. But it would be hilarious and it'd be fun. So the point is that we're always thinking of new characters. If you're anything like me, and you've always got an idea for the next character. So hell, get your character killed, get to play the new character. Awesome. Of course, don't sacrifice your characters willy nilly because otherwise they're all just sacrificial things that don't matter. It's good to mix it up, but embrace the fact that you get to make a new character, that you get to do something new, that you can do something interesting. Because sometimes you get bored of your character. Sometimes you play the character because he's alive and you try and keep him alive because he's the character you're playing. When in reality, you're like, you know what? I kind of just want to retire this guy and start someone new. Oh, well, rather than retire him, hey, look at this awesome thing I can do with him before I die. Or, whatever else. So this has been my discussion on character death, and I hope it has been useful for you. I hope it has opened your eyes to the possibilities of things that you can do. And of course, a lot of these things, like the DM leniency things, they're not rules. You can't necessarily do these, but you might be able to get away with some shit that you can't because your DM is realizing you're dying. Use that. All right, guys, that's it for Koibu's Corner this week. Next week, we are going to be talking about how to weasel things out of your DM, how to incept ideas into them and get them to be more receptive to your desires. We're going to learn how to, I wouldn't say trick your DM. I would say for the DMs watching this, how to merge. Fuck it, just watch the next episode. We'll see you guys around then. Bye-bye.